I have spondylolisthesis, which means my L5 is moved forward more than 20% forward. But then they found out I had 2 cracked vertebrae. And then they got me with, you also have foraminal stenosis, which means the spine is closing in on the nerves, and that's all contributing to your problem.
How long ago was this?
20 years ago, and I'm standing here today with not one twinge.
So you didn't do any surgeries, nothing?
No. My concept is, regardless of how strong your core is and all the other stuff that people do, to be able to do an exercise or an amount of exercises, if we're not controlling our spine, which is our central nervous system is running through, then we don't really have control of our body.
Okay.
So when you do this exercise, which you're talking about this?
Yeah.
Now, if I just concentrate on the foot.
Yeah. Well, you do it at the same time as your head.
Yeah, sure. Well,
you understand.
Well, that's one version of it. I actually personally do this, but I put a weight on my foot and I lean right back and I do it like this, right? Because I'm starting to get this area here is becoming weaker, so I'm strengthening it.
Okay.
Right, but that's just me personally. What I've learned fairly recently, within the last couple of years, is that doing that exercise like this is highly beneficial.
Oh, with your back against the wall?
Well, just leaning on something.
Yeah.
So the whole pressure is on the feet. Now, I'm very familiar with all this because I had a totally torn tendon, and it took me 4 years or so to be able to walk properly again, and that was one of the exercises. But if you do this exercise or your version of it, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you connect with your spine first.
Okay.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
I'm now able to do that much easier.
Connect with your spine how?
Because in my mind, that is part of my whole body. This is not a disconnected part of my body.
So when you say connect to your spine, how do you do that?
Through a lot of practice, years of it, by envisaging that everything in your body, all of it, works from the spine. It's connected, obviously, to the spine. You can understand that in your toe and all the little bits and blood vessels that are all going back to the spine, and then into your brain. So that connection is there for a reason. I don't suggest that you can do this straight away or even that it's necessary. I think what you need to do is picture that you can move each vertebrae one on top of the other and all together so that you only move as far as it is comfortable for you.
That's very difficult.
It's not as easy as it sounds.
No.
Because it's something we're not used to.
You gotta be very patient.
Well, you have to be. Not a quick thing. So, I'll demonstrate it again. So what you need to do, plant the feet so they're pointing forward, at least. Check. If you do this in the mirror, it's much... I mean, you're pretty straight, so you don't have a worry with this part of it. So your ear and your shoulder and the ankle are in line. You draw in your sphincter a little bit and try to keep the coccyx, just an awareness of the coccyx. Don't just not think about it.
Okay.
That it's actually slightly turning under.
Okay.
Now the reason for that is also that stance there will have turned your hips slightly from your normal position. You'll be feeling there's a little bit of aggravation in the hips.
Yeah, here. Well, it's very tight.
Yeah, tight.
Very tight.
Well, if you practice this every day, you only need to do a couple of minutes, right?
Okay.
Well, you do more if you want, but at least do it every day.
Okay.
Exactly the same way.
Just at least getting myself in the stance.
You're getting yourself in that stance And by about the third or fourth day, you will find
Well, it's the hip flexors, isn't it? That are really tight, or is it the...
people go on and on ad infinitum about your hip flexors.
Yeah.
And what they try to do is strengthen the hip flexors.
Okay.
What they need to do is have the ability to turn them off, not tighten them.
Yes. How do you turn? Oh, anyways, that's a topic for another day.
Well, it's not, because it's all part of this.
Okay.
How you turn them off, I want you to get that sensation where they are impinged. Are they at the moment?
The hip flexors.
Yes.
They've
Well,
always been tight.
Your hips, okay.
They've always been tight.
Now what I'd like you to do, put your feet back parallel again. They're splayed out.
Like that?
Get in the stance again. Relax. Don't rush it, just relax. And now I want you to slightly, very slightly, break your knees, crease them. Don't hold them tight, let them go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did that take the strain off your hips?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So from now on, do it that way.
Okay.
And then eventually you can do it with your
So even when I set up the stance.
Yeah.
And I do the turning of the spine with my knees just a little bit cracked.
The turning is not an exercise in how far you can turn.
No, it's just in.
It's an exercise in recognizing that we are capable of moving the spine in every direction. Right? We can move it that way. To a certain extent, we can move it this way. We can move it this way. And we can certainly move it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that impinges on that is not natural.
Okay.
So in order to get all that back without even trying the actual movements, the key to it is recognizing that we are in control of the spine.
Okay.
Because when you go from being able to control it this way, you can definitely control it any other way you want.
Okay.
So in the beginning, it might sound like something you've not heard before, right? Most physiotherapists don't know this.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
I've seen a few and they didn't explain this.
I've seen more than a few. I'm not dirty on the whole physiotherapy business, but I've had unbelievable amounts of treatment, years of it.
Yeah.
And apart from a little bit of relief at times, it never did any good.
Mm.
So I've explained, I think to you before, I have spondylolisthesis, which means my L5 is moved forward more than 20% forward. So the spine, instead of being like this, it's like that.
Oh.
And because of that, I had all sorts of back pain, which went undiagnosed for a long time. They knew I had that. But then they found out I had 2 cracked vertebrae, which was adding to the problem. And then they got me with, you also have foraminal stenosis, which I had to look up, which means the spine is closing in on the nerves, and that's all contributing to your problem.
How long ago was this?
20 years ago, and I'm standing here today with not one twinge. And I have had a huge amount of physiotherapy from lots of experts. I've had Bowen treatment, Feldenkrais treatment, Rolfing treatment. I have had the guy who bills himself as the best massager in the whole of Australia work on me, all of them. And yes, they did help me temporarily, most of them. And I'm miraculously better at nearly 82 years of age than I was at 62. And my bugbear, the last thing to let go, was that this knee, and I had people work on this for years. I paid them money to get me to be able to put this heel on the back side, which is very simple now. It's very stiff, still got stiffness in it,
Yeah.
but I can do it. And I could not move it, hardly at all. That knee did not bend for years.
Wild.
And I found out it's a result of the continuation of whatever we call it, nerves, whatever it is that's connected to the spine.
So you didn't do any surgeries, nothing?
No surgery. They were trying to convince me to. I had an expert in running who had turned into being a physical therapist. He actually had a degree already in something else, engineering or something, and he ended up doing physiotherapy course to be able to familiarise himself. But he took it a lot further. And he gave me some exercises when my tendon was absolutely torn. It didn't repair the tendon, it just worked around it. And I can stand on one leg, but I couldn't even walk. So I'm just thankful for how it's all ended up, because as I get older, I'm less aware of any of this. I've overcome it. I don't need to go running marathons. I mean, the last one I did I was 70. You
did a marathon at 70?
Yeah. I think all the exercise I do is like all about contained inside me. It's just standing. Anything you can't do within a few, like 2 meters, don't worry about it.
All
right. So the important thing is to consistently do this with that mindset every day of connecting with your spine. And that sphincter idea has some very old, ancient probably, connection. It's something that's practiced by quite a few different Oriental societies.
Interesting. Okay.
So we're trying to relax. We're not straining anything.
Yeah.